A chi sta studendo?
Ok, ci sentite tutti da casa?
Ah, quelli sono che...
Sì, sì, vi sentiamo.
Ok, perfetto.
Ok, poi stanno. Spagna per drive.
Sono queste.
Sì.
No, li sto prendendo. Ok,
Visto.
va bene così?
Va bene così? E poi mi aiuta Riccardo per fare la... Sì, però quello è il seguente. Ok, mi ha detto che fa la connessione.
Va benissimo, dove siamo? Possiamo
Sì,
cominciare?
sì. Non sono pronta.
Accordi, stai al centro.
Perché?
Riccardo si mette lì, per questo, per ragioni di equilibrio di geopolitica, e ora vogliamo passata il microfono.
Esattamente.
No, perché se no va bene.
Così me ne vado, così.
Licia, ci senti?
Sì, la processualità è pure collegata, si vede. Allora, cominciamo. Io sono qui semplicemente da spettatore e per salutare molto velocemente le nostre ospiti di questa sera. Ecco, questo mi fa particolarmente piacere, che c'è Riccardo che è qui per ragioni istituzionali perché è lui il coordinatore del corso. Le nostre relatrici sono tutte queste donne e questa è l'ennesima prova della dimensione che noi abbiamo sempre sostenuto rispetto a queste iniziative interculturali in senso pieno. E da questo punto di vista mi fa particolarmente piacere salutare gli studenti dell'Università di Vienna che sono qui con la grande associazione europea degli studenti, la ETSA. Brevissimamente, herzlich willkommen auf die Wien Studentinnen von die Universität Vienna. Palermo ist schon sicher Ihnen bekannt, aber es ist immer ein Erlebnis, hier zu sein. Ich hoffe, dass dieser Aufenthalt kann für alle von euch eine gute Erinnerung in den nächsten Jahren bleiben und warum nicht auch ein Anlass, um wiederzukommen. Entweder hier an der Universität Palermo oder auch an der Strada von Palermo. Sono molto contento che ci sia qui ancora una volta la professoressa Bachmaier, che per l'esperienza internazionale che ha acquisito, per i lunghi rapporti di colleganza in varie occasioni, mi fa un regalo nell'essere ogni anno con noi, perché sappiamo quanto sia impegnata. Anche per la dottoressa Ferrari questa recidiva specifica è per noi un'occasione davvero di conforto, perché consente al meglio di mantenere questa concezione del progetto di essere appunto un progetto interculturale, ma anche che taglia trasversalmente le professionalità del giurista, non solo studiosi, ma anche soggetti che, come gli autorevoli componenti della Procura di Palermo, che da sempre intervengono, persone che coniugano l'interesse e direi anche l'amore per il diritto con una concreta verifica al banco di prova dell'esperienza. Alice Siracusa non posso che augurare di rimettersi al presto dall'occasione, speriamo appunto transitoria, che la costringe a non essere, come sempre è, fra di noi. Buon lavoro e per i saluti ufficiali passo la parola a Riccardo, che è il docente.
Sarò brevissimo per non togliere tempo alle nostre relatrici di oggi. Siamo al 9° seminario del ciclo di 12 seminari e oggi parleremo, come avete visto, di traffico illecito di rifiuti, quindi ci ricolleghiamo alla tematica del diritto penale dell'ambiente, a un aspetto specifico di questa tematica, e ce ne parleranno oggi 3 relatrici di assoluto rilievo all'interno del panorama nazionale ed internazionale. In primo luogo la professoressa Lorena Bachmaier Winter, della professoressa cattedratica di diritto processuale. Non aggiungo penale perché da voi è unico, se ricordo bene. Come avete capito ormai negli incontri precedenti, professoressa cattedratica è professore ordinario, il nostro studente è il professore ordinario, la professoressa Bachmaier ha se proviamo a scorrere il suo curriculum, veramente ci vengono i capogiri, perché ha un curriculum difficilmente riassumibile in poche battute. Proprio per questo motivo non provo nemmeno a riassumere il curriculum della professoressa Bachmaier, ma mi limito se posso occupare questo spazio con un piccolo richiamo personale, a richiamare non solo la caratura accademica della professoressa Bachmaier, ma anche le sue qualità personali. Io ricordo al Max Planck, nel mio piccolo soggiorno a Friburgo, 1 mese e mezzo per me di studio senza sosta. Ogni volta che incontravo la professoressa Bachmaier sopra in caffetteria, per me erano 5 minuti di gioia e di affetto. Quindi mi permetto di occupare questo spazio proprio per riportare, più che le qualità accademiche, che non sono io certo a testimoniarle, anche le sue qualità personali. La professoressa si soffermerà sugli aspetti della normativa in materia di ecomafia e traffico illecito di rifiuti, soprattutto sovranazionali, europei ed internazionali. Successivamente io, per cercare di seguire una scaletta che possa andare dalla normativa sovranazionale sino poi alla ricostruzione anche dei casi più rilevanti, cederei la parola alla professoressa Alicia Siracusa, che è collegata da casa, che non ha bisogno di presentazione e che ha scritto una delle monografie più rilevanti in Italia sulla materia del diritto penale ambientale, e quindi chi meglio di lei potrà parlarci, potrà ricostruire, seppur per grandi linee, la normativa in relazione al traffico illecito di rifiuti. E infine cederei la parola alla dottoressa Claudia Ferrari, procuratrice presso la Corte d'Appello di Palermo, che non solo ha collaborato con noi in questi anni in tematiche parzialmente diverse seppur collegate, mi ricordo i suoi interventi in materia di traffico di beni culturali, per me essenziali per quello che poi ho scritto. Mi ricordo che ha riportato un caso proprio su quei libri rubati alla diocesi di Monreale e poi ritrovati all'Università di Boston, alla biblioteca di Boston, che mi hanno dato una dimensione concreta del traffico di beni culturali, e le posso assicurare che quel suo intervento per me è stato di assoluto interesse, e quindi non vedo l'ora di ascoltarla, visto che mi occuperò quest'anno anche di traffico illecito di rifiuti, e ascoltarla oggi al riguardo, perché la dottoressa Ferrari, se non sbaglio, è responsabile in procura per i delitti in materia ambientale. Quindi abbiamo 3 relatrici che sull'argomento ci potranno illuminare, come difficilmente potranno trovare 3 relatrici migliori, e quindi vi preannuncio che la professoressa Bachmaier, pur potendo benissimo anche relazionare in italiano, relazionerà in inglese anche per i nostri ospiti da Vienna, però siete liberi di fare le domande dove vi sentiate più a vostro agio in italiano, perché la professoressa parla e comprende perfettamente l'italiano. Io cederei direttamente la parola alla professoressa Bachmaier, che ringrazio ancora una volta per aver accettato il nostro invito.
Grazie per questa presentazione, grazie per l'invito. È un piacere essere di nuovo qui con tantissimi colleghi fantastici e spettacolari. Voglio dire che all'Università di Palermo in giurisprudenza, le altre materie non lo conosco, però in giurisprudenza è veramente un top notch among European universities. Così bravi a tutti, complimenti a tutti per essere qui e complimenti anche ai miei colleghi per fare una lavoro internazionale così importante, specialmente nell'ambito delle scienze penali, con il professore Militello che non ha bisogno di presentazione, non è la mia funzione oggi presentarlo, però sì, devo dire che tutti hanno, e il professore Militello, un livello internazionale assolutamente riconosciuto. Mir macht es besonders Freude, dass die Wiener Studenten hier sind, denn mein Großvater war Wiener, also herzlich willkommen auch Ihnen auch. Und wir machen weiter nicht auf Italienisch. Mi scuso, il mio italiano è così, non è per fare una relazione, sarebbe sempre povera. E non significa che in inglese non sarà povera, però cerco di farlo un po' meglio. Così se qualcuno ha problema in inglese mi lascia sapere e parlo un po' più piano. E come abbiamo detto, qualche domanda per favore la puoi fare in italiano. Così termino con questa introduzione brevissima e vi faccio sapere che la mia presentazione è così introduttoria perché poi parla una specialista in diritto medioambientale dal punto di vista accademico e poi una specialista in diritto medioambientale dal punto di vista pratico. Così io sono qui un intruder. Io non sono specialista, I could say that I'm specialized in prosecuting transnational crime, and environmental crime is a transnational crime. So my presentation today is going to, if I do not manage to teach you a lot of things about hazardous waste in the Mediterranean, which is the topic of today, at least raise awareness in all your minds about the importance of prosecuting this crime, preventing this crime, and handling it before it is committed. Because it's you, the younger generation, that is going to inherit this planet. And it's going to be living, not that much, but longer than my generation. And it's increasingly polluted on climate change and so forth. But hazardous waste in the Mediterranean is already at the top of being absolutely at risk. At risk, we consider it when it's not retrievable, when it's really irreversible. That not only for wildlife, not only for fisheries, but for our own health. So I think the topic was so well selected to raise awareness. Do you know that the ongoing discussion right now, and this is very much fostered by younger students, younger PhDs, younger scholars, it's that the protection of environment is made part of one of the elements of compliance of rule of law. And those countries who do not comply with environmental rules and precisely deal with illegal trading or illegal shipments with hazardous waste, which has the major risk in all areas, should be sanctioned in the future at the international or at least supranational level with the rule of law mechanism. So just an introduction. I don't know how many of you are specialized in or aware of environmental crime. None of you? So this introduction is useful for you? Yes? Yes, I know it's time. This is siesta time in my country, so time for sleep, time for an afternoon lunch nap. But please listen to me. Of course, I've made a long travel over here, and I would like to make it worse. So allow me first to just reproduce a video. You can find it in YouTube. This is where I found it. And this is going to be, it's from Interpol. So sorry, the funny part is over. And now you have to listen to me, but I thought it's an impressive, just seeing the images, it's an impressive way to introduce this. And now we come to the more boring side, which is the legal part. And before we start in addressing the problems in fighting hazardous waste and the shipment, some definitions. Very, very briefly, because you know what waste is, everyone, waste, rubbish, and whatever litter you want to know, it's anything that needs to be intended to be disposed or required to be disposed. So for the international conventions, everything that's we understand as rubbish, whatever kind of. Transboundary movement. This is what we are handling in the Mediterranean. Transboundary movement is defined in the Basel Convention, which is the main framework, as we will see, as involving two states. So moving from one national jurisdiction to the next jurisdiction. And what is important is for this presentation today, it's what's called hazardous. And we go to the directive, the European Union Directive of 1999, which is waste that contains one or multiple properties specified in Annex 3. So it's mainly, if we go to Annex 3 of the directive, properties of the waste which render it hazardous are explosivity, reactivity, flammability, irritability, harmfulness, toxicity, carcinogenicity, and corrosiveness, and so forth. If you are interested, go to the Annex 3. So everything that is highly risky for our health, for our environment, obviously all chemicals, radioactive materials, and substances that are toxic in all ways. In Annex 3, it was not included. Okay, thanks. In Annex 3, it's not included plastics. So it was kind of a big discussion. Is plastic a hazardous waste or not? What would you say? Because there are two elements, so paper and glass, they are not considered hazardous. But plastic only 3 years ago, it was voted by, within the UN, by 187 states to be considered and defined also as hazardous waste. So now when we talk about hazardous waste, it's not only nuclear toxic chemicals, but also, which is a major problem in climate change, but also in our health, it will include plastic.
Sorry, but from home they can't see the.
They can't see the slides.
I don't know.
So they missed the UN video. We shared them.
Liscia, ora vedete?
Ok, ora le vediamo, sì.
E avete perso
Adesso
tutta la parte di prima?
Purtroppo sì.
Ok, va bene.
Well, I don't think it's necessary to explain an environmental specialist what is waste and what is. Okay, so this is a major step. The plastic is included into the definition of hazardous waste. The problem is how to implement it. How to implement it and what is the role in illegal shipments. What we will be facing as a result and the consequences of this new classification is that the number of crimes, so illegal shipments, will increase because of these materials, and disposing plastics is really a huge problem. I wanted to present you in order really to make sure that when you come out of this door, you realize this is a huge problem you have to deal, we are dealing already, but you have to deal in the future with this. So what is the total waste generated by European Union countries in 1 year? The data is the last available one in 2018, all kinds of waste. So industry, household, hazardous and not hazardous, 2,337 million tons. So we are almost drowning in rubbish waste. And out of those data of 2020, the exports to non-European countries reached 32.7 million tons. And these exports is what we will be focusing today, because what we see in illegal trafficking and shipment of hazardous waste within the Mediterranean usually is transferred to non-European Union member states, which a huge involvement, obviously, with, of all countries with important ports, seaports, and especially where corruption or mafia organized crime type organizations are active. So we are talking of the Balkans. We are talking also of the big port in Slovenia. And obviously, I'm not talking about Turkey, which is a huge problem also, but Italy has also a major role here. So if you see this, it's around 16% of the global trade in waste. What is the European Union producing? And the mega destination of our waste in European Union is to Turkey. You see the figures there, and tell me if they are not impressive. 13.7 million, we just ship them to Turkey, legally and illegally. We'll see. This is legal figures. The illegal exports and shipments, it's dark figure. We really don't know how much it's exports. So when we talk about hazardous waste, apart from chemicals, industrial waste, we are and something we are all involved in. It's e-waste, electronic waste. But as I told you, electronic waste is usually mixed also with plastic waste. So this is the point where we have to focus. Some figures, just to finish this overall introductory context. This is a study that was published in the UK and back in 2019, where they really tracked back where the UK waste, electronic waste, was heading to. So not only investigating on the site where the waste ends up, not only investigating on customs where the shipments take place, but from the origin, where the waste is originated, where does it end up? And they found out by introducing several chips to locate and track the waste produced there, they found out that only a very minor percentage of the electronic waste was really recycled and adequately disposed. And this, the director of the Basel Action Network, it's called Basel Action because of the Basel Convention, they said that this is on the backs of the poor and vulnerable. Why? Because we developed countries are producing this highly toxic waste in huge amounts, but at the end, who is mainly paying for the health issues is the underdeveloped countries, or third, poor countries. We have discovered, he said, a very significant stream of illegal shipments of hazardous consumer electronic scrap to vulnerable populations, he said. You all have seen these images of children in Africa just dismantling the chips or the parts of recovery metals in dumping sites in Nigeria and Angola and so forth. But they were not told that this can be causing huge health problems for them. So the worst offender for illegally exporting toxic electronic waste, according to a 2-year investigation that I tell you tracked the shipments, was now non-European Union member state, the UK, which does not mean that the others are complying. Okay, so why is this so important to tackle? And why is this an increasing crime? Not only because of the consequences, but because there's big money behind. As much they calculate as drug trafficking. So, and this has been published by the European Union It's very small, I couldn't make it bigger. But if you look just on the first files, on the first column, you see it's the revenue that provides for the states dealing with hazardous and non-hazardous waste. Just look, it's an estimation, it's a calculation. Between 2,229 million euros up to almost 2,500 million euros only in hazardous waste. This is just to get stock of the situation. If you see there, if you're looking for your countries, Austria is obviously, it's a smaller country, so the revenues are smaller. But the big champions here are the big countries, industrialized countries, which is, as you see, they are France, Germany, and Italy. They are not minor figures. This, if we compare it to the interior gross product of a country, it makes a lot of economic impact. So this was the second part, which of the rest of the countries. And obviously, the numbers here of the revenue of the UK might be questioned if you want to research why they are exporting so much but not making so much revenue. Of course, they are not recycling anything. This is then a major problem because there's so much money around. Around 15, and now we come to shipments. Waste is moving all around. The principle here is the proximity principle. The waste you create, the waste you recycle on site, so that it doesn't move. But at the end, we see that around 15% of all the shipments, so all the lorries or trucks that you are seeing around on roads and ships and trains are carrying waste, 15%. So the others we think, okay, it's good, so and it's food and so forth. And now we see the major exports was in 2016 plastic, which is now since 2019 hazardous waste. And I will skip all the figures, but so you see that is there something being done already? The principle is that when it is detected and it is discovered and it is adequately prosecuted, the conventions, the international law provides for repatriation of the waste. And this was already successful once. There are not many cases on an illegal shipment where there was hazardous waste found sent from the Netherlands to Nigeria, and they were ordered and sanctioned to bring back the waste to Rotterdam. All that, bringing it back, and the whole procedure was amounted to 1.2 million euros, apart from the criminal sanctions. So that would be enough deterrence not to infringe the rules. You may be convicted, sanctioned to bring back the waste. So one major problem when we talk about illegal shipments is even when the shipment and the waste does not arrive any other country, but is simply dumped into the waters. This is a picture from the Mediterranean. It's not invented, it's not imagination. This has occurred. And one of the major problems is not only waste of households and industry, but waste from their own ships when they get cleaned and they dumped their own waste in the sea. This is a major problem in southern Spain, where many UK ships under UK flag come over to Gibraltar in order to clean up their deposits there, and they dump the rest of the petrol in the Mediterranean. So, but anyhow, what is the problem with this dumping of toxic materials and oil in the sea? Unless it is detected, there's no direct victim who can really claim against this and initiate a prosecution. We are all victims, but if we don't know this is happening, we just will die from that. So when we talk about waste crime, look at this. I've distributed the slides among you, but we talk about many different types of waste. I'm only focusing today on illegal shipment of waste and hazardous waste, which implies import-export to third countries and on this waste. But obviously, all these might be typified as crimes in the national law. Misclassification, illegal burning, illegal waste sites, and so forth. And the problem is also that this study that was published last year, the issue is that it is not easy to detect. Why? Because the hazardous waste, it's many times just mixed with ordinary non-hazardous waste, mainly with paper. So they declare in the manifest on the shipment, this is non-hazardous waste, but they conceal their within the paper other shipments. So this is a major problem and makes it even more difficult to detect. When we talk about shipments, where I already told you where the main producers are developed countries. We are talking about European Union, but obviously North America, the US, involving the US and Canada, but also Japan and Australia, identified as the main exporters, not only of hazardous waste, but of illegal waste. So the illicit activity is originated in our developed countries. And then the destination of waste trafficking, obviously depending on the areas. Trafficking in Asia ends up in Indonesia, India, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Vietnam. When it comes from a European Union waste, it ends up mainly in Africa and also in Eastern Europe. So we see there's a connection between environmental infringements, illegal hazardous waste, and poverty, corruption, non-solid democracies, and non-solid rule of law countries as a destiny. And in the origins, obviously developed countries creating a lot of waste, but also linked to organized crime. So what is the main legal framework? This would be the ABC of illegal waste shipments, but the Basel Convention. Basel Convention of 1989 on the control of transboundary movements of hazardous waste and their disposal. What are the principles? This is signed, it's interesting to see there, 187 parties, 1989. When I told you before about plastic included in the hazardous waste, 30 years after, 2019, it's also the same countries, 187, which is those who are committed, but not all of them, no? What are the main objectives? It's not only prosecuting this type of crime, but it's reduction in its origin. Second, reduction of the movement. So you create, you recycle, you don't move around your waste. Improving the safety in handling and obviously controlling the waste trades that it does occur. So via notification, that in origin, they notify what kind of waste they are exporting. They comply with the legal rules in origin, but they also track what is going with that in the destiny. And
the prior informed consent is the principle that was established in 1989. So if you are sending some hazardous waste to Nigeria, you need a prior document that says, yes, the shipment is going to Nigeria, yes, it contains this, and yes, Nigeria has accepted not only to receive the waste, but also to dispose it according to the principle of recovery and recycling. Problem, what was the problem? That even if they documented so, and there's the prior consent form, no one controls what is happening in the destiny. And if there is corruption in the customs there, in the government there, or in the port, it won't be recycled. And it creates these huge dumping problems. So this was recognized in the receiving countries so that they adopted this amendment of the Basel Convention in 1995. Prior consent is not solving the problem. So let's move forward. There is the ban to export this hazardous waste. This is an agreement taken by the Basel Convention parties to prohibit the member states of the OECD and the European Union from exporting any hazardous waste. So you create it, you have to recycle it, and you only can export it around the OECD countries, not to the poor, not to the ones who cannot ensure really the recovery. But look at the figures, look at the dates there. When was this ban amendment signed? Adopted 1995. When entered it into force? More than 20 years later. So it means that there is need to raise awareness that this is an important problem, not just signing conventions. And then 2 years after the Basel Convention, there was the Bamako Convention. This was an initiative from the African countries to control this transboundary movement and management of hazardous waste within Africa, including also the ban of that receiving hazardous waste. Now if we go, and I'm finishing already on the legal framework, we go to the regulation within Europe. And within the regulation, this is the main framework, this regulation on shipments of waste of 2006, which prohibits, except to EFTA countries, to all exports of waste from the community destined for disposal. So European Union, a principle, should not be exporting any waste. Do we need more legal instruments in combating illegal waste shipments? I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so. There are so many regulations and directives already in place. I just put here the most important ones. That it is difficult really to identify which is the applicable law, which applies to hazardous waste, because sometimes it's mixed with the disposal of waste and repealing, and recycling. And nevertheless, there is a proposal to update what is the criminal regulation of environmental crimes, which is the directive 2008-99. And so up to now, if you look at hazardous waste shipments, the regulation of 2006 is the one that is still in place, in force, and it's the main legal framework. So for you to know, the latest news is that last November, so 6 months ago, the Commission tabled a proposal to revise the European Union rules governing shipments of waste. Within the, so to say, Green Action Plan and the strategy of the European Union, and also with the cooperation of the European Parliament Committee, the ENVI Committee, they are trying to update the directive of 2006. So among its aims, why? Ensuring the waste exported from the European Union is managed in an environmentally sound manner in destination countries, and stepping up enforcement to counteract illegal shipments of waste, which is a very general aim. which should not be needed because at the end, hazardous waste and exporting to non-OECD countries is already forbidden. As for now, I cannot tell you how is the proposal because it's being dealt by the co-legislator in the European Parliament. Within the latest update, within the directive on the protection of environment through criminal law, which you know it's one of the issues to be harmonized within the European Union to provide for criminal offenses of environmental infringements. And the shipment of waste is included in Article 3.c, where its activity falls within the scope of Article Regulation of 2006. Again, the definition of what is illegal waste shipment is very general because it's when it is in a non-negligible quantity, whether executed in a single shipment or in several shipments. And what is non-negligible quantity? Depending on the toxicity of the material. Anyhow, this is being right now on the track to be updated. I just point out, if you want to deepen on it, last December, there is a proposal to enhance this directive on the criminal law and protecting the environment within the European Union. And then we come to the practical party, to the practical side. Sorry, I'm 5 minutes and I'm finishing. Okay, if I'm too long, just stop me.
You're okay.
The last report of SOCTA on organized crime and transnational crime and threats assessments, they really introduced that and put it black on white that the same structures that are used in other kinds of organized crime, the same structures and the same methodology and the same people are the ones dealing with the illegal shipment of hazardous waste. These are the same networks. So what is applicable to fighting any kind of organized crime type offense, it's applicable to this eco-mafia offenses. You know that the reports on organized crime have already established that there is a network around transnational criminal organizations. One's specialized more in trafficking of weapons, others in trafficking of human beings, others in drugs, but they are all connected among themselves. So kind of they make an illegal distribution of the market, and within this, they use the same methods and the same means. So what has been discovered is that the same ships, sometimes that they come over from Africa doing the illegal immigration, go back to Africa loaded with hazardous waste. So obviously this is a very efficient, if some of you have studied management skills, this is a very efficient way of managing illegal profits. What is being done? What is being done apart from legislative work, apart from updating the regulation of 2006, apart from establishing the cooperation at the international level with Europol? Well, there is this Mediterranean Action Plan within the Barcelona Convention, led by the United Nations, and they tackle the issue on hazardous waste shipments, but only insofar they are connected with pollution. So the Mediterranean Action Plan is not focused in criminal or illicit transportation, transboundary transportation of hazardous waste, but as they are focused in protecting the environment of them within the Mediterranean, if you have interest in these topics, just go and have a look on the figures on the damage that has already been done to the fisheries and to the species in the Mediterranean. And at the end, where we are bathing, it's not only a photograph back down in Africa, We are bathing already in cocaine and other toxic elements when we go into lovely seaside in the Mediterranean. I don't want to spoil the tourism here. I come from Spain too, and I adore the beaches, but we have to be aware that this is a major problem. So United Nations, the UNEP, so Environmental Program, runs this Mediterranean Action Plan. Within the European Union, there is an increased action. There is a strategy, the new circular economy. Within this major problem of combating climate change, reducing plastics in origin and so forth, there's also an area to take action within the illegal shipments of hazardous waste. But the main issue is do not produce so much. And if you produce so much, establish mechanisms to recover it and clean it up where you produce it. In this way, I would say that Norway is a champion because they hardly export any waste, and they comply with high standards of recycling and recovering, and they are very conscious. Then the society is demanding that. So other actions that are very, very active is the European Union Network for the Implementation and Enforcement of Environmental Law. And within it, they have the Waste Force Project. And the Waste Force Project has produced this, when we come to prosecuting waste crime, this guidance for public prosecutors. There is an interesting study, if you want to have a look at it, understanding the impacts of transboundary, sorry for the repetition, waste shipment policies focused on plastic. This would be some guidance for the public prosecutors. First, detecting. And in the detection, when it goes to pollution of the sea, they are within the European Union, they are already using the drones and the satellite information provided by the system of Copernicus. You have heard about Copernicus? Copernicus provides the satellite information for the agriculture policy within the European Union, just to know who plants what and how many and so forth, because more than 80% of our European Union budget goes to the common agricultural policy. So they control what the crops and what is planted in all countries. So this satellite information is being used to identify illegal burning, dumping sites also. And within the Mediterranean, it doesn't act because it's already out of our frontiers. So detection is a major problem. The shipments, how to detect illegal shipments? Obviously, the investigating strategy is by inspections of storage, but you need to go through the documents in the ports. So the manifest of shipments, doing inspections within the ships, and obviously other means of transport. The guidance for prosecution, it's very general. So collect the appropriate evidence, collect the samples, submit it to expert evidence. But as you see here, in the third part, GPS mark and photograph the scene and any evidence on containers. Evidence on containers, which is very important to detect in origins, because in destiny, where the corruption might be absolutely dominating, might be very difficult to gain that evidence. The gathering of digital data from the satellites, but not only from the satellites, from the digital forensics, and the ensuring that those digital data are later admitted as evidence in the origin prosecuting states is one of the major challenges. So there is, since 2015, the Intelligence Project on Environmental Crime, which is, as you see, since 2015. I haven't seen any report on what has been the improvements or the outcome up to now, but obviously it's interconnected, any waste industry to the legal industry as any other type of organized crime. So what are the conclusions? I finished already. And there is need, obviously, for more implementation, not for more legislative framework. There might be need for some fine-tuning. What prosecutors and law enforcement complain is that there is need for supranational and transnational coordination. So the different institutions, port, customs, intelligence, and tax authorities, like in other organized crime activities, shall be better coordinated, and obviously chasing the money. If this is a crime which is profit-led, and you have seen the figures, chasing the money is the way to deter these activities. So, and then use and implement all the drones for surveillance and prevention. Recently, I was talking to the central prosecution in my country, in Spain, fighting environments, and they told me they only have 6 drones. And thanks to the tax agency, and obviously 6 drones to cover the whole territory of Spain is a mockery. It's simply mockery. So some investment has to be done there. And finally, what I think is absolutely crucial, the citizenship has to be more involved, raising awareness. Civil society has to move on just to prevent that this continues happening. Educate responsible citizens and consumption of goods, and fight against the short life of our electronics might be also. It's one of the plans and the actions within the Green Action Plan that obviously electronic devices do not end up in 2 years or 4 years, and promote the circular economy. We don't need so much plastic around, so everyone can just put his own piece to combat this disaster. Thank you so much for your attendance and for listening this afternoon. I see you kind of.
I would like to thank you for your really interesting lecture. I really appreciated it, mainly for your approach that was not just linked to or limited to criminal law or to law or the point of view of the law, but was an approach very wide, open to not only the criminology part, but also the sociological part of our everyday life. And this was very, very interesting for 2 reasons. First of all, because also this course is mainly structured on a multidisciplinary approach linked to the sociological part and the criminological part, as the students knew, and for another reason, because from your lecture, we got that criminal law is not enough. Criminal law maybe is not the major part of the reply to the problem. And this is very useful, and we found this reply also when we study, for example, human trafficking in the previous lecture. We studied that also in human trafficking, criminal law is not the only part of the reply. Also in the counteraction on trafficking of cultural goods. So it's very peculiar in our criminal law course that we say that criminal law is not only the part of the way of dealing with a problem, but it's very important to move from the need of a holistic approach when we face this kind of problems that are not just problem of criminality. Before giving the floor to the students, if there is some question or some idea linked to the lecture of Professor Bachmaier, I just would like to ask you one thing that is more law related. We talk about waste, we talk about hazardous waste, we talk about notions such as non-negligible quantity. What I'm thinking about that is, it's very tricky. Maybe the principle of legality here could be really at stake, because what is waste? waste is something that the producer intends to discard. So it's not an objective definition. It's a subjective definition. It's a definition really tricky, more trickier than the definition of cultural goods that we saw few lectures before. Also, hazardous waste. What is hazardous waste? Maybe in hazardous waste we have the annex. Maybe the annex can help us, but we have to identify the hazardous waste through the notion of non-negligible quantity. And what is that? So I'd like to know just a few words. In your opinion, it could be very difficult to use this category in criminal law. It is very difficult to use this category in criminal law. Can we have another way, or can we follow another path, sorry, or not? It's a very big question, I know, but it's a pleasure to have you here, and I would like to catch the opportunity. Thank you very much.
I thank you, your question. Before answering, is there any other questions so that I control how long I answer or not?
Absolutely.
But please, one question so that I get home and say, yes, they were interested. At least one was interested in what I said. Please, if you want to come to, so they all hear and listen it.
Yeah. If anyone else want to ask a question, you don't have to come here. So maybe you're not surprised. Please.
Okay, so my question is,
And you are? So that we know you?
I'm Giuliana, colleague in
Giuliana.
Yeah. So my question is, if right now there is any legal discussion regarding the implementation of blockchain technology or any technology which could be of great help for the monitoring of any and every waste in every country, because clearly criminal law is not enough right now. So making new directives or anything clearly is not of help. So I was wondering if there's any official talk of practically implementing this technology to avoid any of this happening at the root. Yes, so this is my question.
Thank you, Giuliana. Any other questions?
Okay.
Please, come on, come forward. How much time do we have?
No.
Because I don't want to disturb.
Are
you sure?
Absolutely.
No, io non voglio abusare di altri. Go and dispose some waste.
Prego.
Hi,
it is,
good afternoon.
but you can talk also to the others.
Okay, my name is Giulia.
Julia and Giuliana, okay, Julia.
And I have a question. I have a doubt mainly. And for example, this historical period, we often listen, talk about also electric machine, electric car. And so I think that there are some new solutions in this period about, for example, these new technologies. But I think that maybe in the future we could have other problems linked to these new technologies. So how to understand if we are going in the right directions, or maybe in 50 years we will have some new problems about these new technologies. I often think about it. Okay, so my English.
Thank you. Which is a major question, Julia.
Very big.
Last one, can we get another one?
No, yeah, one or two, maybe also in Italian or in Deutsch.
Yeah. Quelli che non vogliono parlare in italiano, in inglese, possono farlo anche in italiano, Soltanto Giulia e Giuliana hanno domande? che io posso del topic? No? No? In the future, what? Okay, I'm not asking. Okay. Let's come to the difficult question.
Prima, if you want to start with Giuliano and Giulia, it's...
You have here a gentleman. Old-fashioned, non-gender-based, or non-gender prejudice gentleman. Okay, blockchain. I really thank you for this question. I was taking part precisely this morning on the. I'm part of the expert group of the European Union Commission on Criminal Policy, and we were discussing not environmental issues today, but the implementation of the sanctioning system against the Russian oligarchs related to the Ukraine war. And obviously, you know that what has happened in the last months, they have just frozen their assets, no? As type of sanctions, not to trade with the Russia, and freezing the assets of oligarchs out of Russia. And the European Union has done this on the basis that only freezing. The problem is what they have done, obviously, in the short time when they were seeing already that their assets were going to be frozen, is go into the virtual markets, into the virtual money. And prosecuting and freezing cryptocurrencies, it's really, really difficult. First, because of transboundary. Second, because of you don't have any material good. Third, you don't have a central authority whom to send the notification. Obviously, virtual money is making it more difficult to chase the money from illicit activities, licit and illicit. But there is already a task force in anti-money laundering and fighting money laundering because they've seen that cryptocurrencies is the way to escape any kind of control, taxes, but also to prosecute and confiscate illicit profits of crime. So that's a major problem. It was discussed, it was raised today, but what we were told by the DG Just this morning is that they are trying to move in that direction, but they have another hundreds of problems also, but obviously this is a good point. And so if any one of you and Juliana is able to go and research in that area, because you are the best situated and best placed to address all the digital challenges, okay? So we can talk you about principles, but digital native are you. So my question is, it is being tackled, it will be long until it gets solved, okay? The other way around is all the environmental problems, the cryptocurrencies, because the high consumption of energy, they evolve. So that you know that the major server is in Kazakhstan, and they have more relaxed rules on environmental protection because it's so costly and energy consuming. We consider this is just something virtual, but there is a strong computing machinery behind. Julia, automated cars and the problems, and of course, it's a big business behind. And artificial intelligence, automated cars. I happen to be also in a commission in the Council of Europe discussing about the regulation, criminal liability on automated cars, full automated, half automated, semi-automated, and so forth. And when I heard some 5 years ago, the idea we have to move towards automated cars because 90% of the accidents are produced and caused by human mistakes, it was kind of laughing. Excuse me, what is the mockery here? Of course, 90% are produced by human mistakes because all cars are driven by humans. In the future, when we substitute the human by the machine, 90% of the accidents will be traced back to machine. So we should substitute the machine then. You are completely right, Juliana. We are creating also in this area of electric let's move, because the pollution caused by petrol and diesel to the air, it is causing a pollution, a warmth, and climate change, and we're all dying because increasing our temperatures. But no one talks about how to get the electricity. Yes, they talk about it. But you know that main electricity right now is still coming from carbon, except in France, when it comes from nuclear plants. So where is the tricky here? Where is the trick here? And that lithium batteries produce much more hazardous than any kind of other chemicals and metals. So, and you know that this Ukraine war is very much linked to this lithium also. So yes, you will be facing other different problems, because life is evolution, and life means change. So new challenges for you, but don't dream, sorry for being pessimistic, don't dream of a nice, lovely, peace and love world, because you have to struggle for it every day. As after 10 years working in Ukraine, you see, I've been struggling for a rule of law, and in one day it goes. So, and your questions, principle of legality, I fully agree with you. What is negligible quantity? Of course, they are describing a criminal offense with absolutely indeterminated and possibly defined issues. But I think I will leave these issues to Lucia, who is the expert in this, but I fully agree with you. But what is the alternative? If you were the legislator, you say waste is a too broad concept, everything that can be discarded. Well, if we dump this table, is it waste? Or are we promoting the circular economy? When I live in Germany, so this year, every time you go around the neighborhood, which is a well-off neighborhood, you find furniture just on the street, people that don't use it. Is it waste, or is it a gift to the society? So we come to this question, which is absolutely not easy to answer, but what is the alternative? If we want to prosecute any kind of harmful disposal, we have to be broad. And we cannot say, okay, this is harmful for someone, but it may be beneficial for others. And you're completely right. We have here a problem on the traditional principle of legality. But it's a discussion for academics. For law enforcement, they always recognize this is waste, this is not waste. But anyhow, this is like a bad smell. You cannot define it, but everyone recognizes it. Sorry for being absolutely practical or pragmatical at this point. I could keep on talking, but I shouldn't. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that now we can have a little break or 10 minutes, and then we'll start with the lecture. Thank you very much. And I think that our friends from Bien will follow another lecture at the 5 p.m. So thanks for coming here today. We will see you on Monday afternoon.
I need a break.